Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Dayna. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and today I'm going to talk about the full moon lunar eclipse that's occurring on March 25th at 5 degree 7 minutes Libra. So we are in eclipse season, and this is a really hyped up time in our human experience. It happens every 6 months. And we are dealing with the Aries-Libra eclipses. So we're dealing with an Aries-Libra axis. I'll definitely go into that and break that down. But first, I want to talk about what what are eclipses? Why are they important? So eclipses have been happening since the beginning of time, of course, and they're considered to be a celestial event that is really powerful, that affects all of us, animals, nature, humans, and our consciousness. So when we are dealing with a full moon lunar eclipse, which is the one on March 25th, the the alignment between the sun, the earth, and the moon, it creates a break in light from the moon. So the moon will kind of be cast in the earth's shadow and be swallowed up by darkness for some time before it's then revealed again in the light. And the same thing happens with a total solar eclipse. And so that one is on April 8th. So eclipses happen in pairs, and they usually happen within 2 weeks of each other every 6 months. And the lunar eclipse tends to have more of an emotional focus or an emotional tone. And anything lunar, anything that has to do with a full moon or um, even the moons in our chart, it holds an emotional tone because the moon rules our emotional nature, what makes us feel secure, nurtured, and safe, so the eclipses are kind of a big deal in that sense. When there's this much heightened energy around a celestial event, it can definitely, make us think worst case scenarios, or, kind of go into like the fear or all the what ifs. And so today I'm here to kind of like break down what this eclipse means for you. I learn best by relating these celestial astrological events to what's happening in my real life or people around me, like what's happening in their lives. So I am going to kind of make this more appropriate for your microcosm, but still bring in broader themes. So we can, you can plug it into your own chart and really kind of allow the themes to marinate and let this be a guide for you. Let this um, recording be something that is a reference and hopefully a positive ally for these times of immense change, right? So the the eclipse that's coming up on March 25th, you'll notice that I have pulled up a chart that's specific to where I am. That might look a little bit different, like we're not really concerned with the sign that's on the rising or anything like that we're worried about. Um, Not worried, but we're really focused on the planets and the aspects. So with a full moon, the sun is always opposite the moon, and they will always be in opposite signs. And that's with any full moon or eclipse, except with a new moon or um, a total solar eclipse, like the one we have on April 8th approaching. The sun and the moon will be next to each other, and they will be in the same sign and degree. So let's kind of take a look here. So this is considered a south node eclipse. There's a little bit of focus here on the south node, so I'll talk about that. where we have the sun at 5 degree Aries. So we are going to be starting off this eclipse with the vernal equinox just days before, right? March 20th, it kicks off the celestial new year in Aries. So Aries is the beginning of the astrological zodiac, of the astrological year. And no matter where you are in the world, whatever season it is, Aries is the sign of new beginnings, right? It's the seed of consciousness that sprouts new life. And it's the I am presence. So Aries is connected to the archetypes of the leader, the warrior, the initiator. It's the hero, it pioneers and it sets off on a new path, and it's motivated by instinct. It's a very raw, kind of primal energy, and it's a fire sign. So it's highly spirited and it's motivated to get things going. And Libra is an air sign. It's also a cardinal sign. And Libra is a sign that's connected to the archetypes of like the artist, the diplomat, the peacemaker, the relational, like Libras are very motivated by relationship. So Libras are really lovers, they're Libra and love are synonymous. And Libra is ruled by Venus and Aries is ruled by Mars. So we already know that this eclipse is heavily relational and relationship focused. Now, we can't help but be in relationship to everything. And this can even be our relationship to ourselves, which would be, perhaps if this lunar eclipse was in your first house, this might actually be an eclipse that's focusing on the patterns in how you relate to yourself and how, that relationship maybe needs to change or shift. And so we can kind of get into that too. Because all the houses, you'll see the houses are energy fields of life experience. And the houses will further tell us, the themes specific to you, how this eclipse will play out, like where the story is being told, where it's unfolding. Now, this eclipse story isn't new. It is the second eclipse of this Aries-Libra axis. So we're already aware of the story that's taking place. The previous eclipse was last April of 2023, and that was an Aries new moon eclipse. And so we're now seeing that story continue. And this is the second of the Aries-Libra eclipses. And then the third one will be at the end of this year in 2024. So let's go ahead and kind of get into that. So both of these signs are cardinal signs. Cardinal energies, they initiate new beginnings. The cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. These are the signs that really activate. They set an idea in motion. They don't always sustain it or carry it out or maintain it like the fixed signs will, but they get people involved. They really get the energy outward and generating. So, they have the ability to illuminate like what needs to shift and change in our lives. So because we're entering the vernal equinox, there's already so much energy. We feel this in our bodies. We're going to feel geo-electromagnetic waves from the sun's alignment with the earth. We're going to feel just a heightened sense of beginning, renewal. Aries season brings in so much fresh energy, and there's going to be a lot available to us that some of us can kind of just feel stir crazy. So we want to be mindful not to make like impulsive, rash decisions that we might like later regret. although that is part of this eclipse, it's very clear what needs to change and what perhaps we need to take action on. And so that's the thing with Aries, in the sun, when the sun is in Aries, it's very clear in our conscious awareness. That's what the sun represents, our conscious awareness and our sense of self, like what we need to take action on. And because this is a lunar eclipse, so there's a break in the unconscious realm, and it's almost like a flashlight is being shined on a blind spot. And so it's this break in light, and then the moon is illuminated again. So there's this illumination around a part of our unconscious selves in the psyche that is now being brought into our awareness. And you could call it a part of soul retrieval. You could call it a healing or a spontaneous awakening, an aha moment. These are really common with eclipses. And what the eclipse energy does is it accelerates your story. It accelerates the path you're on. And the reason people have this kind of fear around eclipses is because they're like, well, something is going to happen and I'm so worried I don't know what's going to happen. And that's why we have astrology to really prevent those like fear-mongering worries and tendencies, and to kind of give us like a literal map of our living energy and how we're being challenged, right? Because we're having this human experience, like our soul is coming to have this human experience, um, and we're here for our growth and our evolution. And so eclipses are like these check-in points. It's like, okay, if you're not on the highest path for your growth and expansion, it's going to feel more extreme. And so most of us have a sense already right now in this moment of what that could possibly look like as it relates to these themes of Aries and Libra. And so that's the thing with eclipses. We really see like, okay, I wasn't really paying attention to this blind spot, or I couldn't see it. And now it's really in focus, right? There's an alignment and cohesion of focus within self. And so it may propel you to take action, Aries, on a certain pattern, relational pattern in your life, and move you into a new direction or one that is just better suited for your path. So I hope that makes sense. It doesn't need to be as extreme, although the cardinal signs will feel this eclipse probably the most because it will be squaring their sun or moon. And if you have any planets at 5-degree Libra or Aries, you'll definitely feel a big catalyst in that part of your chart. You'll feel it as if it's like personal, like it's on you, so that will take a little bit of digging into. If you know your chart and you can look at where Aries is, you can definitely see, do I have any planets there? And even if you don't, you will see that there's an activation occurring in that part of your chart. And so I mentioned squares can be felt quite intensely. Anytime we have an eclipse that is squaring our sun, moon, rising, personal planets too, we feel something a little bit more personal, and there's a challenge, there's something we have to overcome. It's not as fluid in our life, whereas someone who perhaps is going to have this eclipse on their Jupiter, like this might be one of the biggest blessings of the year for them. So it's just a matter of what's being lit up in your chart. Okay, so let's get into this. 5-degree Libra. So this is the releasing component of the eclipse. Full moons are always about releasing, letting go, and allowing, making space for new energy to come in. So again, if you can look to your chart and see where you have this symbol or the sign, Libra is depicted by the scales. It is the only inanimate or living object in the zodiac. So Libra is very relational because it comes alive through relationship. And that's not bad or anything. It's just that's just the the way this sign functions. And so Libra is ruled by Venus, right? So at this time, Venus is in Pisces. Venus loves to be in Pisces. This is a this is considered her exaltation. So Venus is the part of us that desires love, desires harmony, relationship, connection. And in Pisces, she's really connected to the higher, lovelier spiritual energies, right? Pisces rules spirit realm, unconditional love. It's a very artistic energy. It's highly creative and it dissolves boundaries. It really brings us into oneness and feeling at one with all that is. So this is actually a really beautiful eclipse in some ways. It can bring us to a place of peace and for some of us, making peace with perhaps certain patterns and ways that we've been in relationship or ways that we've been self-sabotaging, and not that we're like, oh, I'm at peace with the ways that I allow myself to be treated this way, but that it's really time to let go and move on in the way that peace can kind of envelope us. So it feels highly spiritual in the way that's like, you might feel like you're being guided in a new direction. You might feel like you are ready to pivot and it just can't explain it. Call it intuition, call it a psychic sense. There's this like guiding energy that's accompanying this eclipse. And the ruler of Aries is Mars, and Mars is at that very first degree in Pisces. So both Mars and Venus are in connection here. So to break this down, Mars is the planet of desire, of strength, of action. Mars is how you move in the world. It's your motivator. And he's going to show you really like what you want, how you assert yourself. Venus is more of that receptive energy. So Mars is the masculine energy in our chart, and Venus is the feminine energy. And we all have Venus and Mars in our chart, whether you're male, female. This energy is within everybody. Mars is the part of you that exerts masculine energy. This is the part of you that gets up in the morning and gets ready, and maybe, it's the part of you that's like going to work. Or Venus is how you are when you're like relaxing and how you want to receive love. Venus is the planet of affection, attraction, beauty, pleasure, and values. So because this is very much a relational eclipse, it could feel like there is a lot of shifting and changing in the ways that we relate to people. Maybe there's a kinder sense of relating. Maybe we're ready to like put down the sword a little bit. Or maybe we're really ready to kind of fight for our peace. Mars energy is like, well, what are you what are you fighting for? And in Pisces, like Mars is fighting for more grace, more harmony, more beauty, more balance, and Venus is really about like, seeing beyond the boundaries. And Aries is a sign that wants to create boundaries. but the planets in Pisces are really about dissolving them and really like letting go of the differences and letting go of the separating factors. And it's motivated to find a way to unionize, if that makes sense. I mean, it's a little esoteric, but the the ways that our relationship patterns have perhaps hurt us, or maybe we're the ones that are hurting another, and we're ready to look at that and have more grace with ourselves, have more grace with others, not at the expense of like abuse or boundary violation, but there's something there's like a peace offering happening with this eclipse. And so let's kind of dive into the deeper themes here. When we're talking about Libra and releasing the patterns of what's in this, we want to look to the moon and the negative or shadow qualities of Libra, like the things that we'd want to be releasing here, perhaps codependency, or and I believe that there are healthy levels of codependency, which I could get into another time, but that could be something as simple as like going to a workout class by yourself, or going, like, maybe going to a movie by yourself, or going out to eat by yourself, like actually dating yourself. These are just like simple little ways you can work with this energy. But Libra is very much about people pleasing. Um, it can be very indecisive. It can be kind of passive, self-indulgent even. It can be, it can be kind of like approval seeking, and kind of like a little bit superficial or inconsistent. It doesn't really want to rock the boat. It doesn't want to make things unpleasant. Libra's an energy that wants to keep things like really lovely at the expense sometimes of like one's own happiness. And so this eclipse is like, that's not working for you and your spirit anymore. Like, how can we find a way to move forward? Because this eclipse and coming into the the vernal equinox is really about forward moving, like taking inspired action in a way that still allows for grace with all parties involved. I keep getting the image of like having, like a therapy session with someone maybe you've been having a hard time confronting, maybe something coming to a place where you're having a hard conversation, but you're in a place that's like more balanced, there's more nervous system regulation. And that is the beauty and blessing of the Pisces energy, that really like comes in to be like a buffer of some of the harsh energies that can come with like Aries and a Mars ruled lunar eclipse. So yeah, there's a huge focus here on the South Node. So all of us are talking about this. This is a South Node eclipse. Why? What does that mean? Well, there's a yod. Okay, astrologers are pretty fascinated with yods, and they are these really beautiful configurations in our sky that create a focal point. So it's not a trine, but they're called the finger of God or the finger of fate. So this is a incredibly fated eclipse, and most eclipses are, but I believe that there's an added air of fate because of Venus and Mars being in Pisces, which is really about letting go, letting God, surrendering, what you can't control, deepening your faith and connection to source, whatever word you like to use, whatever that may be for you. And really like yods, well, they create an intensity of energy. And from my understanding with yads is that the planets that create the base or the sextile, so we're looking at this kind of Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which is approaching exact April 20th, April 21st. So that's a whole conversation right there. But I've named that conjunction chaotic blessings because Uranus is chaos, even though it's there's so many elevated energies about Uranus. And then Jupiter is all about expansion and blessings um, and spirituality. So these two planets are working together in Taurus. So Venus also rules Taurus. And it's in a sextile to Venus at 16 degrees. So this is just adding more emphasis on love, beauty, harmony, connection, and the focal point, the south node being in Libra, in the releasing energy, the south node is what we call like K2 or the tail of the dragon, where the energy, it's about letting go. So the north node can move forward and like fill up. And it's not like the nodes are fascinating because they create a magnetic focus or pull. So you can also look to your chart and see where the north node is, and that's where you're experiencing um, life in a way that's like, this is what's for my highest growth and evolution. And the south node in Libra is like, well, we have some energies here. We have some patterns that we need to let go of and really release so we can move forward in a healthy direction that's for our sense of self, right? Aries. So this yod is it's a beautiful message. You know, I think it's one that will feel and land a little bit differently for all of us. And so something has to give here, you know, something has to give with the South Node in Libra. And that could be perhaps over compromising or, you know, staying in relationships even if they're not healthy, or really just kind of like allowing the patterns to come into focus and come into your conscious awareness and see the ways that maybe you're preventing yourself from receiving love. Maybe there's, you know, some self-sabotage that we need to release here. You know, it could mean so many things. And for example, like if the South Node is in your ninth house, maybe you're releasing a certain belief system, or, you know, maybe you're releasing certain views, maybe certain new age views. And that would mean that the North Node is in your third house. And so you are ready to learn something new. Maybe you're ready to go back to school and, you know, allow yourself to be a student again. And like investing in yourself, right? Investing in a dream, because we also have Saturn in Pisces, which is very much about investing in a dream that you have, and deepening your sense of self-trust and allowing yourself to be guided and to know that you're on the path that is perfect for you. And that might look incredibly different than your partner's path, or, you know, someone close to you, a family member. It's like never before in a time are we able to exist in a reality where like we're all kind of getting to the same place. We have very different ways of getting there. Um, and then there's all these filters of like beliefs and values. And these are things that are important. Like these are things that we ground into, you know, and things, patterns and relational skills of how we think things should be and look like in our lives. And to me, this eclipse is like really allowing ourselves to kind of put our hands up and be like, either, you know, laying down our sword, right? Aries, and allowing ourselves to really be like, maybe I'm done fighting, maybe I've been fighting something so long and it's not in flow, or it is time to kind of have more self-assertion and actually fight for your peace or fight for more balance in your life, to bring in more harmony, to bring in more grace. So maybe that's like Aries is all about what is the stance that you're taking, like take a stand for something. Whereas Libra is like, I'm quite passive, or, I don't want to fight. I want to just like harmonize and be. But they both need each other. The opposite signs are the medicine for each other. And the beauty of Libra is that it's a sign of social harmony and social justice. And so what it wants to do is like, and it's actually very good at doing this. I have many Libras in my life and I love you guys. Um, Libras are able to find solutions for everyone involved. And it's like everyone wins. So it really elevates conflict. It doesn't like conflict, but it's actually phenomenal at sorting through conflict. So it's, I mean, right, we often don't like the things we're good at, but and then Aries can kind of light a fire under that Libra energy of like, hey, we kind of need to move out of like this stagnancy, or maybe we've been a little complacent here. So maybe it's as simple as like your relationship needs to go to the next level. You need to work through some things, need to like deepen intimacy, and maybe like therapy or counseling is a great idea. It's like, how can we move in a new direction together? Because there is something here in this chart, in this eclipse, that's like, there's something here worth working through. And for some there isn't, so it's like wherever you're at in your story, you'll know, it can feel volatile for some people, and then it can feel like more peaceful for others. So I think it's like wherever you are in this wild pendulum. So ideally it's to, you know, recalibrate everyone into a place that is more cohesive for themselves. Um, and so I hope this was helpful. I wanted to touch on one more thing. Aries does tend to be a sign that is known for having um, like more anger in their expression. Getting angry often shows us like, oh, I need to have a boundary in place, or like a boundary's been crossed for me. So I did want to point out, I wrote in my notes that if you feel angry about something, like this is a really great time to get clear on what that is and how you can implement a boundary. Libra does very well with like a healthy conversation. It does really well with like honesty, and it's an air sign. Air is about communication. It doesn't want to sever always. Like, obviously if it's past the point of repair, then that's a different story. But there's so much emphasis on relationship dynamics, but I wanted to really bring in um like, for example, if you have this eclipse in your 6th and 12th house, um that would mean like if the Aries sun was in, or the Libra moon was in your 6th house and the Aries sun was in your 12th house, like you could be releasing patterns that are really like sabotaging your health and really keeping you in a holding pattern that is like, okay, this isn't good for me. I need to look at the ways that I'm not taking care of my body or my vessel. And I need to really, like, 12th house, have a more like sacred connection with my body. So what are some very like practical ways that I can nurture myself? 6th house, and like create a routine that I'm in relationship with, because it continues to nourish me. So even if it's not like a physical relationship, we're looking at our relationship to the houses. So I'll just go through the houses and then I'll kind of end it here so it doesn't get too long. So if the lunar eclipse, and when I say lunar eclipse, if the full moon is going to be in your first house, you could be really looking at the patterns of relationship with yourself and others. So how can you find a balance between self and other that is healthy and that really reflects you? So this would be an eclipse that's a little more, I was going to say that has a little more like, what's the word? Weight, because this is the house of relationships. So, maybe this is the example I used of like relationship therapy or counseling. And another thing that comes to mind here is that it's hard when the people around us are having a challenging time like connecting to the person we're growing into, especially if we're like not all the way there yet or like confident with our new path. We can feel like kind of lonely with, who we're around, or like my partner doesn't get me. My friends are still trying to like connect with the old version of me, and that can feel like really isolating. So that would emphasize like a need to maybe reevaluate like who you're spending your time around, and perhaps like, try to find new connections that like better suit where you're at in the now. Um, if it's in your second house, you could be evaluating or releasing like certain relationship patterns to your money. And, that's a pretty, that could be a heavy eclipse too, because it could deal with, eighth house can also be like a relationship, a marriage, it could have to do with like a spouse's income. And it could also be very positive where like you're receiving money like through your spouse and it helps you guys really like get ahead in some way. Anyways, I'm just like scratching the surface, but third house would be, you might be ready to like release ways in which you communicate and really like expand yourself through higher knowledge, right? And maybe you want to study astrology, or you want to study like more esotericism, or you want to kind of like third and ninth house has a lot to do with going back to school and learning and um like growing beyond just like the walls of the linear mind. Like the third house is a connection to the part of us that relates to everyone around us. It's the house of like the lower mind, but I feel like it sounds kind of like, I don't know, it sounds kind of like bad or negative. But it's the part of our mind that learns through school, through common knowledge, through our community. And the ninth house is all about learning through lived experience, higher education, perhaps even like seeking a mentor, or a spiritual, like kind of like a spiritual type of mentor, counselor, teacher, things like that. Fourth house, moon and Libra, we could be really letting go of like certain relationship dynamics in our family, or perhaps like some type of um, way we're relating to our mother or a family of origin. There could be something going on in the home where there's like a career opportunity that's developing. Maybe there's a move on the horizon where it's like, okay, I have to kind of like let go of my current situation and move for a career opportunity, 10th house. If the lunar eclipse is in the fifth house, could be letting go of like a hobby or a creative endeavor that just like isn't as passionate or fulfilling anymore, to make room for like a new creative endeavor, which would be like 11th house. And perhaps that inspiration comes through a new group or connection, um, to community and new friends. Sixth house would be, of course, your health. We went over that. Seventh house, if the moon is in Libra here, that would really echo the relationship dynamic. And maybe there is a relationship that needs tending to, needs a little bit of um, like presence and counsel, perhaps. If it's in the eighth house, you might be letting go of perhaps the ways in which you relate to your own like growth and transformation. This might like kind of propel you out of a place that has been comfortable for some time. So this could also be like a shift in intimacy, or, like letting go of a way that you and someone else have always connected, and there's something new that's coming in. Ninth house would, of course, be like education, letting go of a type of um, belief system. Maybe for some people, they're leaving like some of the esotericism, or maybe taking a break from astrology, and like, okay, I'm ready to learn something else and bring that into my toolbox. For Gust Moon and Libra, maybe there's a need to let go of a relationship to career, and focus more energy and attention on the home during this time. And if it's in the 11th house, there could be a letting go of like certain friends. 11th house has a connection with our friends, our groups, organizations. And then 12th house, there might be, a need or a calling to let go of how we relate to the spiritual realm, and maybe welcome in um, something new that's like maybe more energizing. Or like for me, what comes up is like a new type of meditation. Like maybe there's more exercise that needs to come in, a walking meditation, like, changing up the ways in which you connect to spirit, God, source, whatever resonates for you, by welcoming in that energy of where Aries is, to like really fire you up and trying a different dynamic. I mean, it could be as simple as yoga. It could also be taking up like running or kickboxing. Like, 6th and 12th houses is definitely about health and like keeping your spirit grounded in the body. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope to make more of these videos for you guys. I just wanted to channel and share really what was coming up for me as I was looking up at the eclipse coming up. And I might, put out another video to, if I have anything more to expand on here. But because there's a yod in this eclipse, I just wanted to really reiterate that, a lot of astrologers, or just people out there, they say, oh, like don't manifest around an eclipse, or like just, it's the energy is so heightened. And if that resonates for you, like great. It's one of those things where like you're moving through, call it a portal, an opening, a channel, like you're moving through this time. This is like a passage where your soul will be realigned with what's perfect for you. And I recommend like creating some space, whether it's on the day of the eclipse, like eclipses are felt a week leading up, a week after. I mean, and then there's an eclipse just 2 weeks after March 25th, to like really drop in with yourself and feel where you're going. And if you can't sense like a next step, because that's very much what Aries likes. Aries is like, what's my next step? What can I take action on? Just allow yourself to move through this eclipse. And if it doesn't feel really big or catalyzing, like that's okay, because I don't think it's going to for everybody. The one that's coming in April, that new moon in Aries, will bring in like that rush of clarity that I think a lot of us are seeking. So, allow yourself to like move through this energy with grace and in connection, and just like hold yourself in that space, and give yourself as much, like give yourself patience with this eclipse. Like there's no need to like have everything figured out. But if you are wondering where your next step is unfolding, look to the Aries part of your chart. That's going to give you so much information. That's going to give you a clue as to where your direction and your future path of like growth and evolution is like unfolding really for the next year. So that's important to know. And that can be just like a guiding compass in and of itself to be like, okay, just tap into that part of your chart when you're feeling, lost at sea or hazy. Um, the Aries energy is just a huge like anchor right now for all of us to be like, okay, well, you know, this initiative energy is coming in. And again, more in April, the energies are going to be really heightened as well if you're not really feeling them quite yet. So, thank you so much for listening. And I hope to see you back here soon. Have a beautiful day.